Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Caitlin and I upload 3 times a week on this channel. Wednesdays are a fashion or lifestyle video, Fridays are a weekly uni vlog of my life at university, and Sundays are my Unsolved Sundays where I do weekly instalments of discussing different cases of disappearances, anything along those lines. Today I'm going like old school with the Unsolved Sundays. I'm bringing back the blue lipstick. I haven't worn this in so long, so I thought I'd bring it back, and I have my bubble tea ready. So if you're ready to hear about today's case, then keep on watching. So today's case I'm going to be discussing is the very strange disappearance of 2 young girls, Lauria Bible and Ashley Freeman, and also kind of the strange circumstances around the deaths of a couple of their loved ones. So yeah, we will just get started with the case since there is a lot to discuss. So on December 29th, 1999, Ashley Freeman decided that she wanted to celebrate her 16th birthday with her best friend Lauria Bible. They decided to spend the evening in the home of the Freeman family. So in the home was Ashley, Lauria, both of Ashley's parents, and also Ashley's boyfriend, whose name was Jeremy Hurst. Very early on in the case, it stated that Jeremy left the house early. He left at around 9:30 p.m. that evening, so he left the family of the Freemans and Lauria at home without him. Lauria had also planned to stay the night at the Freemans, so it wasn't weird that she stayed late or anything. Bearing in mind, the home of the Freemans was a mobile home. It was kind of like a large, mobile home, RV type situation. So it's believed that at some point, either very late the night of the 29th of December into the early hours of the 30th, a fire started and spread throughout the mobile home that belonged to the Freemans, where all 4 of them were staying. It was actually a neighbour who noticed the fire around the mobile home, so they called the fire department around 5:30 in the morning. By the time the fire department got to the mobile home, it was pretty much obliterated. There was just mess everywhere, it was just ashes. So straight away the fire department arrived. They called the police department and also all of Lauria's family just to tell them what's gone on, and all of them collectively began to search the rubble for any signs of any of the 4 family members that were inside the house. Initially they found absolutely nothing amongst all the ash, and it took them a little while to dig through it all. Ashley's mother, Kathy Freeman, was actually the first to be discovered, and she was found dead under amongst a pile of just rubble. And since this was the first discovery, the rest of the remaining 3 of the family were declared as missing. So when they discovered Kathy, they took her away to do an autopsy, as they do in pretty much every case. It was actually determined, I mean, a lot of you would assume, it was a house fire. It was unfortunate, it was in the middle of the night, so unfortunately they might have just caught fire while they were sleeping. That would be the cause of death. But the results of her autopsy actually discovered that her cause of death was by shooting, as opposed to burning or asphyxiation or anything along those lines. So because of this discovery, investigators, their new lead was that the fire had been started intentionally, most likely as a cover-up for something else that had gone down inside the house. So when the whole sort of aim of the investigation changed, the first theory that came about by investigators was that Danny Freeman, so Ashley's dad, had actually killed his wife and kidnapped the 2 young girls, and that was why the 3 were not being found yet. So while this was a highly supported theory at the time, the following day the family of Lauria, so the Bible family, decided to return back to the mobile home scene, basically in hopes of finding any sort of signs of where the 2 young girls were, because obviously they had no clue. It was actually them who discovered the body of Danny Freeman, which for some reason investigators didn't find initially amongst the rubble, and they later found out that he had died in virtually the same way as his wife. And there was still no sign of Ashley or Lauria or where they could have gotten to. So they continued to search the area just in hopes, again, of finding any sort of hints of what happened to them, and they found Lauria's purse. Inside her purse was about $200 of cash and her driving licence, so it's obviously something that she wouldn't intentionally leave the home without. Investigators could also completely disregard robbery as a motive for whatever happened that night, because obviously she had cash in her purse, so that wasn't taken, and the valuables were taken from the mobile home. And this made it more and more likely, or appear more and more likely, that the 2 girls had been kidnapped, because like I said, she wouldn't leave without her purse or like their belongings, so it became more and more likely that someone had come along and taken the 2 young girls. So obviously the investigation turned, because they still had no idea of what happened to either of them. They decided to look into the family and who would possibly have any motive for maybe taking the young girls, if there was any drama they'd been involved in, anything along those lines. So the investigators found that just 3 months before the incident, Danny Freeman had actually gone to his brother Dwayne, who they were said to be close, and Danny basically told him that if anything were to happen to him over the next few months, that he needed to look into the Craig County Sheriff's Department. So apparently, as they looked further and further into it said that there was a huge feud between the Freeman family, in particular Danny Freeman, and the law enforcement team, the Sheriff's Department in Craig County. And basically it traced back apparently to when Danny's son, whose name was Shane, he was unfairly unexpectedly shot by one of the deputies of the Sheriff's Department after he'd stolen a neighbour's gun and truck. So the investigation into Shane's death actually declared it as being justifiable for the shooting. Danny was apparently trying to gain enough information to file a wrongful death lawsuit against the department because he didn't believe that Shane's death was justified. So once this information came about during the investigation, it became public knowledge, and the Craig County Sheriff's Department decided to remove themselves from the case, obviously just because it was a clash of interest. So it became the case became at the hands of the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, so it became kind of a higher up case, and the investigation became a lot more formally conducted as it wasn't at the hands of the local sheriffs. And obviously because of this information, they decided to turn their focus on the deputies in the Sheriff's Department, anyone that worked in the law enforcement team. They all took polygraph tests and they all passed, so they were immediately removed from the suspect list as to who could have created the incident that happened that night. So a huge theory that came about to try and explain what happened that night and what could have possibly happened to the girls was that Danny Freeman had actually become a drug trafficker in order just to increase the income that was coming into his family, because obviously they lived in a mobile home, so they obviously weren't the most well off, and a lot of people believe that perhaps maybe he turned to something like drug trafficking just as a means of getting money for his family. There was an anonymous informant who claimed that Danny had met with two unidentified men just a couple weeks before the incident, but no matter how much evidence comes forward about this theory to support it, it doesn't necessarily explain what happened to Lauria or Ashley, or where they could have gone and why they would have necessarily been taken. So another theory that I actually read about suggests that perhaps Ashley herself killed her parents. Apparently there were some issues amongst her family, in particular Ashley and her father weren't necessarily getting along. And then once this theory kind of came to light and a lot of people were stating their concern that perhaps the two young girls were accountable for the deaths of the adults, a lot of law enforcement and just kind of professionals said that it was very, very unlikely for the girls to have that amount of skill to be able to carry off the incident, whatever happened, and also stay away for so long without anyone finding a trace of them. Because they were only 16, they said it was very unlikely for them to have that in their skill set. And Lauria's family are also completely adamant that neither of the girls had anything to do with the deaths of the Freeman couple and the incident itself. They are just adamant, they are so sure that neither of the young girls were capable of doing anything along those lines. A couple of years later, there was a man named Jeremy Jones who actually confessed to murdering Danny and Kathy Freeman, and he is actually a death row inmate. He claimed that he abducted the two young girls, killed the Freeman couple, and he took the two young girls to Kansas, where he then shot them and buried their body in an abandoned mine. He told them the details of where the bodies would be found, so the investigators followed his lead and found absolutely nothing, so they completely disregarded what he'd confessed to. Jones actually recanted his confession after this investigation took them to the mine, and obviously they found nothing. And the investigators also found an arrest report saying that Jeremy Jones, he'd been arrested at around 4 a.m. the morning of December the 30th, around 18 miles away from the mobile home, the scene of where the incident occurred. Investigators do actually still believe that he may have had something to do with whatever happened that night, whether it was to do with the two girls or the deaths of Danny and Kathy Freeman, they don't know. But apparently that when he originally confessed, he stated a lot of information about the original scene of the crime that hadn't been released publicly. So they do believe that in all likelihood he may have had something, since he seemed to know a lot about what happened that night. So that is all the information I have today. There were quite a few theories because obviously the case is so broad. There just literally isn't any leads whatsoever. So let me know down below if you have seen any other interesting theories or maybe what you think happened. I don't even know what to think about this one. It is all very strange. So yeah, let me know down below your thoughts and if there are any other cases you want me to discuss in future Unsolved Sunday episodes, and I will see you guys on Wednesday for another video. Bye.